A person might seem nice, decent, well-dressed, well-mannered. That person might be the person that people highly look up to. However, if that person involves himself into clandestine meetings, filthy bribery and corruption, he himself is nothing other than a thief. A thief towards the organization that he's working with, a thief to the society. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good morning I bid to all of you. The President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, once said, corruption is a cancer that eats away at a citizen's faith in democracy and diminishes the instinct for creativity and innovation. The Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission has been adopting 3 strategies in combating corruption. 1, enforcement; 2, prevention; and 3, community education. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Syahidah Rohani, and today I will talk about a topic that is very dear for us students, which is the topic of, do we students abhor corruption, which relates to the number 3 strategy of MACC, which is community education. Now, my structure of speech is divided into 3 chapters of life of a person. Let's take Ah Chong, a fine Malaysian Chinese boy. In his first chapter of life, he goes through kindergarten and primary studies. He didn't know much about corruption. He was very young, very naive. But he oftenly hears the word corruption from the TV, from advertisement, but never knew what corruption actually is. But he knows that corruption is bad, and we shall not do corruption, practice corruption. So being a good boy, on one fine day, he went to his parents. Father, what is corruption? So then his parent told him the basic simple idea of corruption so that he knows. On that day, the exposure of corruption is given to Ah Chong. Moving on to his second chapter of life, which is the chapter of secondary and tertiary education. Ladies and gentlemen, I call this stage as a stage of realization. Why? Number 1, this is when Ah Chong starts to hear national and international news of how corruption is constantly being talked about. Number 2, he then listens to news about an American wealthy family actually paid a big amount of bribery, $25 million, to Ivy League schools just to get a placement for their child to be in that school. Number 3, Ah Chong himself experienced a second-hand bribery. On this one fine year, Ah Chong worked so hard to get this one particular award from the school. Everybody knows that he is going to win that award. Even the teachers know. On that awarding day, another kid that didn't put any effort for that award received the award. Ah Chong was sad, but he accepted the fate. It's okay. Later that year, he found out that the father of that kid actually paid a big amount of money to the school in return for the award for his son. Ladies and gentlemen, the International Monetary Fund has stated that corruption is world's number 6 highest economic issue, and this is happening to all countries. Moving on to the 3rd chapter of Ah Chong's life, which is the chapter of the working world. This is when Ah Chong starts to practice integrity, accountability, transparency, as once he learned back then in school and along throughout the years. This is when Ah Chong realized how important it is to educate the younger generation, our youngsters, about how important it is to fight corruption, how important it is to maintain our integrity, our morale in order to combat corruption. And this all looks back towards the first chapter of his life, which is the early exposure of corruption. According to a research study from Universitas Negeri Surabaya, it is said that strategic teaching materials about anti-corruption to children is vital in order to let the children know how dangerous corruption can be. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all citizens. Imagine us as roses. This rose. Leaders are our gardeners and they fertilize us. For us to bloom, we must receive the right amount of water, the right amount of fertilizer. However, if the leaders are corrupted, they then shall not fertilize us with the amount of fertilizers accordingly and will not shower us with the right amount of water. We shall then wilt and crash, smashed, and not succeed as a nation. Ladies and gentlemen, let us together uphold corruption and uphold the pride together and bring the nation towards success. With that being said, thank you for your kind attention and time.
Okay, Madiha, here we go again. If last night was about your favorite minister,
Yes.
your situation now is, if you are the Prime Minister of Malaysia, a very good friend of Joe Biden, what would you change to fight corruption? Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
Okay. If you are the Prime Minister of Malaysia, a very good friend of Joe Biden, what would you change to fight corruption?
Thank you for your question, Puan. That question was very amazing. All right. If I am a Prime Minister of Malaysia, number one, I will instill an enforcement for all organizations, governmental and non-governmental, to abide this law of not committing into bribery, not committing into corruption. And I will instill the education towards younger generation, give importance and emphasis upon the education of how important it is for us to actually combat corruption and prevent ourselves into corruption. That's number one, terms of integrity. Number two, education. Number three, I would want my cabinet to apply transparency. Be transparent about the bank transfers. Be transparent about what cars that the ministers use. Be transparent of everything, as the citizens want to know whether we are doing changes, whether we work for that kind of, whether we work for that money on our own or from corruption. So, did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. I think you would do great. Probably when KJ is the Prime Minister, you would be in his cabinet.
Thank you, Will.